There is a moment we all experience, though most of us never say it out loud, that quiet, private moment when something small goes wrong and suddenly it feels like the whole world is confirming your worst beliefs about yourself. It's strange how something tiny can become that trigger that opens every old door that you thought you had already closed. And it always seems to happen when you think that you're finally making progress, when you feel as though that you're getting your life together, or when you feel that you've turned a corner. And then out of nowhere, something taps you on the shoulder and reminds you that you're still human. Welcome to the Lead Well channel. This space is for people who are doing their best to live honestly in a world that expects us to be more polished than we actually are. In this video, I want to talk about something that we all need to hear now and again. Nobody has it all together, not the person on social media that seems to have the perfect life, not the entrepreneur who speaks with confidence about discipline and routines, not the creators or the coaches or the mentors who share wisdom every day. Nobody is perfect, and those who look most together are often the ones still carrying their own shadows quietly behind the scenes. I want to talk about this because it happened to me this weekend, and it was a reminder that I didn't expect, a reminder I probably needed. A reminder that even after years of growth, healing, awareness and work, I'm still only human and I still fall. It's very easy to think that everyone else has it all figured out. You scroll through social media and you see tiny polished moments that people captured on a good day and posted it as if it's their normal. You search online for help with something that you're struggling with and you find people who seem to speak with certainty and clarity as if they've solved everything that you've been going through. It can make you feel small and it can make you feel that you're left behind. It can make you believe that you're failing in ways that other people simply don't. But the truth is simple. Those who appear to have the answers only have those answers because they've lived through the very thing that you're dealing with. They've broken down, they've doubted themselves, they've had nights where their chest tightened and their mind spiraled and they felt completely lost. They are not perfect. They are simply further along the journey in that particular area of their life. I know this because that's me. Over the past few years, I've experienced some of the darkest moments of my life. Isolation, financial pressure, panic attacks, overwhelm, burnout so heavy that I felt like I was walking through water every day. I crawled out of that through methods that I developed on the way. I talk about them here, I teach them, I sell them, I share them as clearly and honest as I can because I know that they help. But it's important to show the other side of that as well, because teaching something does not mean that you're cured of it. Healing something does not mean that you'll never feel it again. Growth means that you learn how to face things quicker. It does not mean that you never experience them again. Anyone you see online offering guidance is human. They still have bad days, they still feel fear, they still overthink. They still have moments where old patterns resurface and catch them off guard. We do not get rid of our shadows, we just learn to recognize them sooner. We learn to soften them and we learn to navigate them, but they never disappear completely. This weekend was my reminder. As many of you know, my wife and I have been renovating a house and we hit some financial issues with it. And at the same time, I'm moving a business to a new location after 10 years. There's other things going on too, but it's overall been a really heavy year. It's been a really draining year. A year that's pushed me mentally, physically and spiritually. And with Christmas around the corner and so much pressure building for the new venue, my wife and I decided to take 3 days away to rest before everything kicked off. We booked cheap flights from Bournemouth to Alicante, we found a nice hotel and we planned to do absolutely nothing except relax. Sounded perfect. A small break, a reset, a little breathing room before the storm. And the trip itself was lovely, but here is what I underestimated. When you're carrying a lot, sometimes the moment you stop is the moment that your mind starts again. I left a mountain of unresolved things behind and stepping away removed the distraction of constant movement. Without all that doing, my mind had a chance to wander, to pick things up, to project, to worry, to overthink. And that opened the door for anxiety to creep back in. I know the methods that I've learned over the years. I know how to sit with myself. I know how to breathe through it. I know how to recognize what is happening and not let it roar me. And I did enjoy the weekend. We laughed, we relaxed, we spent time together. But even with all that, the anxiety lingered in the background, quiet enough to ignore, but present enough to feel it. Then on the last day, something tiny happened, something insignificant, something that under normal circumstances I wouldn't care about at all. We'd bought some Christmas candles. My wife asked me to secure the bag. I put my own bag on top of it so that it wouldn't blow away in the wind, and she asked me if it would break the candles. And I said no, it'd be fine. When we stood up to leave, we found out that I was wrong and the candles had snapped. And instantly something inside me just collapsed. It was like the universe had found the perfect tiny situation to mirror all the quiet pressure that I'd been suppressing. It felt as if this tiny event was proof that every dark thought that I had ever had about myself was true. The spiral was immediate. My chest tightened, my mind raced, and all the progress I believed I'd made suddenly felt like it had just evaporated in that moment. My wife, who's absolutely incredible, talked me through it. She stayed calm and she reminded me of what was real. And slowly I grounded again. But while I was coming back to myself, 3 realizations hit me. First, nobody is perfect, not even close. Second, thinking you are perfect simply because you've climbed out of a dark time is just another form of ego. And third, overthinking is the doorway to suffering, not the emotion itself, but the story that we attach to it. Because let me break this down. I snapped a €3 candle. That's it. That's the reality, the objective truth. But my brain, in that moment of vulnerability, said something completely different. You cannot do anything right, you're useless, you never think, this always happens to you, of course the universe would do this, you ruin everything. None of that was true. None of that was real. None of that belonged to that moment at all. But thinking pulled every old fear off the shelf. Thinking attached history to something that had no history. Thinking took one small frustration and tried to turn it into a character assessment. Thinking tried to convince me that I had undone years of growth in a snap of a candle. And this is where I realized something important. Maybe suffering doesn't come from the emotion. Maybe it comes from the thinking that attaches itself to that emotion. I was disappointed that I broke the candle. That's normal. That's human. But thinking dragged it into the shadows. Thinking projected old wounds into a harmless moment, and thinking turned a candle into a symbol of every fear I once had about myself. And we all do it. You probably do it. That voice that whispers horrible things when you're tired or stressed or stretched. That voice that attaches identity to accidents. That voice that convinces you that you are your mistakes. We all have that voice, even those who seem to have everything sorted. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because if you're in a tough place right now and you look at people like me online talking about growth and clarity and discipline and wellness, you need to know something. I fall too. I stumble, I spiral sometimes, I break down, I overthink, I forget my own advice, I forget my own progress. I am not fixed, and neither is anyone else. I'm just far enough along the path to know that I can get back up quicker. I know how to calm the storm a little faster. I know how to recognize what is mine and what is not. And if you keep going, you'll get there too. When I sat with all of this, something deeper unfolded, something important, something I want to pass on to you, because it's one of the most liberating truths that you can ever hold. Nobody is perfect. Not the people you look up to, not the people who teach you, not the ones who seem calm, grounded, confident and wise, not the ones that appear to be in full control of their lives. They're human and they wobble. They slip and they fall back into some old habits. Sometimes they lose themselves for a moment, and that does not make them frauds. It makes them exactly the same as you. We have created this strange culture when we believe that growth means perfection, that healing means never feeling pain again, that strength means never having a weak moment. But real growth is not a straight line. Real growth moves. Some days you rise, some days you fall. Some days you feel unstoppable. Some days you feel fragile. But the difference between who you were and who you're becoming is not whether you fall, it's how you rise. This weekend reminded me that falling is part of being alive. Slipping is part of being human. Those small spirals don't erase your progress, they test it. They reveal how far you've come in ways that success never does. When I broke that candle, it was not about the candle. It was about exhaustion. It was about pressure, fear, the weight of the year, the uncertainty of change, the responsibility of everything I'm holding right now. The candle just happened to be the moment where the dam cracked a little. And we all have those moments. Spilling coffee, a flat tire, a missed call, a rude stranger, a forgotten appointment, something tiny that breaks your internal rhythm just long enough for the noise to come in. And that noise does not come from the present, it comes from the past. All the old stories that your mind keeps stored just in case it wants to remind you that you're not perfect, as if perfection was ever the goal. Your mind hands you these stories because it thinks it's protecting you. It's trying to make sense of discomfort. It's trying to find a narrative to match the emotion. But you don't have to believe the narrative. You don't have to make the story true. And that's where the real freedom begins. Not when you stop falling, but when you stop believing every thought that appears when you do fall. People say thoughts become reality. But that's only true when you accept the thought as a fact. Thinking is not truth. Thinking is habit. Thinking is pattern. Thinking is the brain doing what it has always done. Thoughts arrive automatically. Belief is optional. If I'd believed my thoughts this weekend, I would have convinced myself that I was back to square one, that all the progress I'd made was a lie, that I'm not capable, that I'm not enough, that I am someone who ruins things, that I'm weak, that I'm hopeless, that I'm failing at being every person I teach others to become. But I didn't believe it. And that was the difference. I let myself feel the emotion. I did not let myself attach a story to it. And when the story did creep in, I pulled myself back. I remembered what was real. I remembered that I was tired, that I was stretched, that I'm carrying a lot, that I was trying so hard to hold everything together, that the candle was just a candle. And you can do the same. When you spiral, pause. When you feel overwhelmed, breathe. When thoughts get loud, question them. When your mind tells you that you're falling or failing, ask yourself, is this true or is this just familiar? Because there is a big difference between the truth and the familiarity. Your mind repeats what it knows, not what is real. This is why I want you to remember something that can change the way that you see yourself forever. The people you think have it all together do not succeed because they no longer fail. They succeed because when they fall, they don't abandon themselves. They don't believe every dark thought. They don't assume it is the proof that they've failed. They simply return to themselves a little bit quicker. And you can learn to do that too. Let me go a little bit deeper into this idea because it's important. I've spent years building systems to pull myself out of those dark moments. I talk about these systems, I teach them, and they work. They work for me, and they work for the people that I help. But those systems do not remove the humanity underneath them. They don't remove uncertainty, and they don't remove pressure. They don't remove the natural fluctuations of a human heart trying to navigate a complex life. There's no finish line in this work. There's only awareness, and the awareness gets sharper over time. You start to recognize your patterns sooner. You start to sense when your mind is wandering. You start to feel when you're carrying too much. You start to spot the early signs of the spiral, and you start to understand when you need the rest. And eventually you realize something powerful, that being human is not the enemy. Expecting yourself to be perfect absolutely is. Perfection kills growth. Perfection isolates you. Perfection makes you believe that you failed when you haven't. Perfection convinces you that everyone else is doing better than you. And perfection makes you hide the parts of yourself that actually needs attention. Nobody is perfect, and nobody should be. This is why showing the truth matters. This is why saying I failed this weekend matters. And this is why talking about my own spirals matter, because it reminds you that you are not alone. When you see creators, leaders, entrepreneurs, and mentors online, it can feel alienating. You can easily think that they're built differently. You can easily think that they never struggle, and you can easily think that they have something that you don't have, especially when you're in a dark place and you're desperate for guidance. You look at them and you think, they're above this, I'll never get there. But here's the reality. They fall, they break, they cry, they freeze, they spiral, they doubt themselves, they question everything, they get overwhelmed, they collapse under the weight of anxiety sometimes, they've got bad days, they have moments where they lose their footing, just like you. The only difference is they've learned how to move through it without abandoning themselves. You can learn that too. You do not need to be perfect to grow. You don't need to be perfect to rise. You don't need to be perfect to help others. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You just need to be honest. Honesty is the real foundation. Honesty is what prevents shame from growing, and honesty is what gives you the courage to keep going. Honesty is what keeps you connected to yourself. Nobody gets better by pretending that they're fine. People get better by acknowledging the truth and choosing to move forward anyway. And that is what I did this weekend. Not perfectly, not calmly, not gracefully, just honestly. I fell. I got overwhelmed. I spiraled. But I didn't stay there. And that is the part that I want you to hear. You do not have to stay where you fall. Whatever you're going through, whatever your version of the candle moment is, whatever tiny thing triggered something huge inside of you, whatever thoughts tried to pull you into the old darkness, you can get back up, you can breathe, you can remind yourself that you're human. You can challenge the thought instead of accepting it. You can choose the next step instead of the old pattern. And when you do that enough times, something amazing happens. You start to trust yourself, not because you never fall, but because you know that you can rise. I'm sharing all of this with you because it ties back to something I said right at the beginning, something I want you to remember long after you finish this video. Nobody has it all together. Nobody is perfect. Nobody ever reaches a point where nothing can knock them over. They only reach a point where they know how to get back up without losing themselves. And that's the real goal. Not perfection, not certainty, not total emotional control, just the ability to return to yourself. If you felt alone recently, if you felt broken, if you felt like you were failing because your mind spiraled, if you felt embarrassed that something small overwhelms you, if you felt like you were the only one who slips, you're not. Even the people that teach this fall. Even I fall. And this weekend reminded me of that again. But what matters is that we rise, and we rise a little smarter every time. A little calmer, a little more aware, a little bit more compassion with ourselves, and a little bit more human. Because being human is not the problem. Thinking you must be perfect is. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps people like us find the content that really matters. And as always, I'd love to remind you that you matter too. Don't forget that.